Welcome back to another Wisco Fanatics Wednesday. Jake and I are here. We have a handful of things on deck today. So we have the Bucks at Spurs recap, the Bucks at Hawks recap. We're going to go through two Milwaukee Bucks trade rumors that are starting to float around. We're not going to give any of our own trade targets until next Wednesday, unless something happens between now and then. And then today we're going to have a Badgers Rutgers recap, and then we're also going to run through the Badgers football transfer portal additions and departures so far. There can still be more additions, just no more departures because the portal officially closed last Friday. So we're going to run through those all on today's show. So we're going to hit the intro and we're going to get going.
Welcome to another episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we cover the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, and Badgers basketball and football teams from an optimistic and realistic perspective.
Alrighty, so we're going to start Bucks and Spurs. Honestly, this is probably going to be a pretty quick one because there's not a whole lot to take away from this one. So, Jake, you can give me your thoughts from Bucks and Spurs from last week.
Yeah, so all the hype coming into this one is, you're coming off a pretty tough loss at home, some pretty controversial stuff going on in that game with Giannis and the home crowd and blah, 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 whatever. But then coming into this game, it's Giannis and a team that he was linked to all offseason with trade rumors and stuff like that. Obviously, having Victor Wembanyama, he's absolutely every bit of superstar that he was talked about, being the number one overall pick a few years ago. And, they're going to be really careful with him. And in the first quarter, Giannis was being very aggressive going to the rim, and he actually ended up knocking knees with Wembanyama. And, as we've had that moment with Rutgers and with Giannis and, a number of our superstars for our sports teams, you feel it in your stomach. You're like, ooh, I know what they're going through right now. Yeah. That's not a good feeling. But I just want to say thankfully that he was able to come back because I want to watch good basketball. I want the NBA to succeed. I want it to be a good product. I love basketball. We're going to go play some basketball after this. And him coming back, and he absolutely dominated the second quarter. He had 11 points and 6 rebounds in the second quarter, and the Spurs kind of took a pretty commanding lead at that point over the Bucks. So it was 66-53 at half, and then by the end of the third quarter, that thing ballooned to damn near 40 points. They were moving the ball better. They were more physical. They were running the offense that they wanted to, and it looked like the Bucks honestly had no idea what was going on most of the time. This is what I talk about with the Bucks all the time. Miles Turner, you can't get him consistent shots. They don't run any off. No actions for Miles Turner. Kevin Porter Jr. scored 0 points. He was 0 for 9 from the field, 0 for 4 from the three-point line. Ryan Rollins, 2 for 8. Kyle Kuzma scored 18 points. He was our second leading scorer, but it took him 17 shots to get there. That's something, I tell you. In the starting lineup, Ryan Rollins, minus 18. Green, minus 25. Kevin Porter Jr. was minus 35. Miles Turner was minus 23. Giannis was a minus 31. So there's not a positive to take away from this. We call ourselves optimistic, but if we're going to do the realistic part of this, that's the realistic part of this. This was a second game where it was just kind of like, all right, we talk all the time, take it, crumple it behind your back. Now you got to add them together. Now it's a bigger ball you got to crumple and throw it behind your back. So it's just one of those games. It was tough to watch, honestly, but you watch and you see if there's anything that you could take away from it. What you took away from it is really what we're going to talk about going into the Hawks game, but that's all I have for the Spurs game. There's really, really not many things to take away from this game.
Yeah. So over the course of an 82-game season, you can crumple up a bunch of games and throw them over your shoulder. But you got to be careful because eventually, that wastebasket behind you is going to fill up. So that's what you don't want to have. You don't want to end up having 25 games behind you that you crumpled up and threw over your shoulder, and you're pretending that those didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So got to be kind of careful with that. Again, that's the realistic part of this. Now, looking at the game, there's a couple things in the box score that I wanted to point out. Not just watching the box score, I have 2 other takeaways. But looking at just the box score, Giannis didn't play the fourth quarter, only played 22 minutes, still scored 21 points.
Yeah.
That's an absurd rate. That means over 36 minutes. If he plays a full game, you're looking at him scoring like 34 points-ish pace. Mm-hmm. Kyle Kuzma, you mentioned it took him 17 shots to get the 18 points. He was 5 of 13 on threes, though. That's 38.5%, which you see 5 of 13. You're like, oh, my God, he missed 8 shots. But that's 38.5%. I will take that from Kyle Kuzma. That's above league average. Now, I'm not saying Kyle Kuzma needs to be shooting 13 threes a game, but if he's making, 3 out of 8, something like that, that would be 37.5%. But I mean, if he's around that 38% mark, I'm fine with Kyle Kuzma shooting as many threes as he wants.
Yeah.
Because if he's shooting above league average, that's going to mean good things for the Bucks, and it obviously is going to parlay into something that I'm going to say from the Hawks game.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing that I took away from Bucks and Spurs as far as numbers go is we need to get Ryan Rollins out of his slump. The last 4 games, including this Spurs game, he was 10 of 44 from the field. That's 22.7%, and 3 of 22 on threes in his last 4 games. That's 13.6%.
Jesus.
So that was rough. Now, my 2 biggest takeaways from the Spurs game is that the Bucks needed a shakeup. Didn't matter to me if it was a coach, a player. We know what the shakeup is when we go to the Hawks game, so we'll get to that. But a shakeup, in my opinion. And the other takeaway that I had, and I told this to Jake, and he agreed with me, and I brought the numbers up on the Wisconsin Sports on the Go show with Trage that's going to be on the radio this evening, is the Bucks should aim to be a defensive first team.
Yes.
We talked about how much younger they got. There's a lot of more athletic players on this team than there was a year ago. And I think with their pace not increasing as much as we thought it would, that their signature should be defense. And you look at some of their signature wins, like the Lakers game, they won 105-101. The Celtics game, they won 116-101. The Pistons game, they won 113-109. Golden State, they beat 120-110. They're looking at this Bucks team. They've only lost 5 games out of 24 losses, holding opponents under 111 points. Through this Spurs game, they were 10-5 when they held opponents to 111 or less.
Yeah.
Now, let's just use this to transition right into the Hawks game, because they did win this game by a score of 112-110. And that puts the Bucks now in a position where they are now 11-5 in games where they hold opponents to 111 points or less. That's fantastic. That's 2 out of 3 wins. That puts you at like a 54, 55-ish win pace if you're winning 2 out of 3, which would be fantastic. We would all love it if the Bucks won 50 games. I'd be happy with that. Now, people are going to see 112, 110 and be like, oh my God, the Bucks had a 23-point lead. People aren't going to like hearing this, but we are not in a position where we get to ask why the Bucks didn't win this any certain way. We are at a position where we are no longer asking how they won. We're asking how many they won. We're not asking how anymore. They got the win. That is what matters. We will worry about ironing out what happens between the whistles as we continue moving into the next game. They won the game. Bottom line. That's one. And I said this also when we talked about the Bucks with Trage. Brace yourselves for Doc Rivers to be the coach of this team for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
If it didn't happen of a firing after the Timberwolves and the Spurs games where you lost back-to-back games being down by 30, it's probably not happening.
Yeah.
And, we'll see what happens as far as the roster is concerned. And I do want to give Doc Rivers some credit for some things that he did with this Hawks game. Jake's going to say the same things when we talk about the starting lineup. So I talked about needing a shakeup. Kyle Kuzma started this game for Kevin Porter Jr., and Doc Rivers brought up that he wanted to get some more size into the starting lineup. We've been talking for it feels like 2 months about the Bucks needing a wing.
Yes.
So Doc took his backup power forward and started him at small forward, which I think was a good move. The other thing that Doc Rivers did that I'm very excited about is giving Pete Nance first quarter minutes and seeing Pete Nance making an impact without scoring. Now, he did end up scoring in the game. He scored 5 points. All of them came in the fourth quarter. But looking at what Pete Nance did, setting screens, grabbing rebounds, getting tap outs on offensive rebounds. The Bucks didn't corral every ball that Pete Nance tipped out. And honestly, once in a while, it's going to lead to a fast break for an opponent. But just getting a hand on a ball here and there, if that increases second chances by 2 or 3 a game, that's going to mean good things for the Bucks. It's 2 or 3 more shots that the Bucks get that they wouldn't have without him out there. So those are good things. He sets very good screens. He stays active. Dude, Pete Nance is never standing still. And it's not like he's just walking around just for the sake of moving. That dude's moving around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is getting around a lot. And he moves like a guy who's 6 inches shorter than he actually is.
Mm-hmm.
He moves quick. So when he's moving around, you notice him moving around. So I love seeing Pete Nance getting some playing time. He did finish second on the team at plus 13. Plus 14 was, I believe, AJ Green was number one at plus 14. Pete Nance had 5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. Very happy with the way Pete Nance played. Now, handful of things. AJ Green, despite being that team high plus 14, he had a pretty rough end of the third quarter, having a turnover where the Bucks had about 11 seconds on the clock. They're up by 8, up by 11 with a chance to go up by 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. And AJ Green commits a foul on a 3-point shot, and the Hawks get 3 points. And you look at like what could have been a 5 to 6 point swing of a 13 or 14 point lead, ended up being 8. And that kind of just fed into momentum for the Hawks, who made a shit ton of threes in the fourth quarter to really close that gap.
Yeah.
The other irritating thing about the fourth quarter, the final 4 minutes of the game, there were 3 fouls called on the Bucks. There were 0 called on the Hawks until they started fouling intentionally. That's super annoying.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for Kevin Porter Jr. I feel bad for Ryan Rollins. I feel bad for guys who are trying to get to the basket. Kyle Kuzma. I feel bad for those guys who are trying to get to the basket to draw contact, and refs are just looking at them like, I don't care that he hit your shoulder while you were going up. I don't care that he slapped your arm. I don't care. So like, we're kind of back to where we were in November, where it's like, why are the Bucks getting so like treated this way? But thankfully, the Bucks were able to get outside of the officiating, still get the dub. That's what matters. Giannis had 21, 17, 6, 3 turnovers, a steal, and a block, and was -8. So another thing where, the Bucks didn't win the Giannis minutes; they won the non-Giannis minutes. So that's a good job by, like I said, like Pete Nance, AJ Green, those guys, Kyle Kuzma, like these guys playing well. We got Ryan Rollins at least a little bit off of his slump. He finished 6 for 12 from the field, still only 1 of 4 from the 3-point line. So he's now 4 for 26 in his last 5 games from the 3-point line. But he did flow better in this game.
I was going to say the shots looked a lot more in rhythm, in my opinion.
He had a couple times where he made a couple bad decisions off the dribble, but those are the types of, they weren't as frequent.
Yeah.
Great. So it's not like, okay, we're back to him making a ton of bad decisions. He had a couple like things that I can excuse as young player mistakes. The Bucks did allow 14 offensive rebounds, turned into 16 second chance points. You got to cut that down a little bit, but other than that, Miles Turner, 14 points, 8 rebounds, being 4 of 6 on the 3-point line. That's great. I really don't have anything to complain about in this game except for the foul disparity in the clutch time of this game. That annoyed me, but other than that, I mean, people are going to complain about giving up leads, but there's no lead that's safe in the NBA anymore. So we got to kind of shift the mentality a little bit that there's no you should have won that game when you had a lead anymore.
No.
And unfortunately we've seen it in football too, but there's no more we have a big lead, it's safe, we can just run the clock out. That's not a thing anymore in sports. So
no.
I'm not going to say if the Bucks were up by 23 they should have won this game by at least 15. I'm not doing that. The Bucks won the game. That's what matters. It's a 1 in the W column. So what did you take away from Monday afternoon's Bucks game?
Yeah, so start at the beginning. Talk about the lineup change because I thought it was really important. Hello, Taylor. How you doing? So first of all, putting Kuzma in the starting lineup, like you said, it gives the Bucks more length and it moves AJ Green down to make him play a more natural position. Tyler's going to hear something that I already said, but this is just truly how I feel about it. But putting Kevin Porter Jr. to the bench for that reason, what does that do for your bench? Well, we've been talking. Hey, how's it going, Trage? We've been talking about the non-Giannis minutes, and you've been harping on Lisa Byington bringing it up every 30 seconds. But
every time he comes off the floor,
I will say this, and this is something that I didn't say on the radio. I gave Doc a hard time because he keeps talking. Oh, I haven't figured out the non-Giannis minutes. I haven't figured that out. It's my job to figure it out. You know what? At least he's trying. and putting Kevin Porter on the bench, a guy who can score, a guy who can facilitate, who can help with rebounding. He can force the issue on defense a little bit, and he can kind of just be the engine. He doesn't have to play second fiddle to anybody on the bench. He can have Bobby be the guy in the corner or on the wing that shoots the three-pointers. And, to Bobby's credit, leading the NBA in three-point percentage, it is what it is at this point. That's pretty impressive. We got to give him his flowers for that.
My bones to pick aren't with his three-point shooting.
I know. I'm just saying. We've talked before about the positive output towards a player should be as loud as the negative. So that's just what I'm trying to do with that. Yep. And Bobby did hit a big-time three-pointer in this game late in the game, so that helped him secure the win. But Kevin Porter Jr. on the bench is a great move. Kuz to the starting lineup is a great move. And the way they use Kuzma is something that I really like. They use him as a point forward. They allowed Giannis to set up in that mid-post area. And when Giannis doesn't have to bring the ball up and read the defense as everybody's moving around, like a quarterback, he can sit there and he can almost be like a running back in the backfield, like, oh, okay, this guy's over here, this guy's over here. Okay, I'm reading this. And allow Kuzma to let things set up for him. And Kuzma's got good enough ball handling, and I want to give a shout-out to Kuzma. Hit a big-time three late in that game, and he hit some free throws.
Yeah.
So Kyle Kuzma was every bit worth his contract.
Solid passer, too, to the point of being the point forward. Like, he's not just dribbling the ball around. Like, solid passer, too.
Yeah, he makes the right decision. So I really like Kuzma. It'd be tough to trade him, to be honest with you. Yeah. But having Giannis in that mid-post area, easier to set up that play that they have with AJ Green, and they just spammed it and spammed it and spammed it and spammed it. And they were just like, listen, we're just going to do this until you stop it. And having AJ Green with a smaller guy on him, now you're not getting a 6'8", 6'9" guy who's got length getting on the Giannis, which cuts down his efficiency, let alone AJ Green's efficiency. Now you're getting a 6'6" guy, which is a big difference from a 6'9" guy with a 7'2" wingspan. Let me just say that. But we'll discuss a few trades, but next week we're going to go into our trade targets, Taylor. But the last thing that I have, well, first of all, wanted to give a shout out to Giannis. 81st first half double-double for Giannis in his career. Amazing stuff. He had 17 rebounds in this game. Also, getting Giannis off the ball allows him to crash the offensive glass a little bit more. True. So the last thing I'll say about this, the shot attempts for the starting lineup, I loved it. It was very even. Good call. Giannis, 12 shots. Kuzma, 9 shots. Miles Turner, 10 shots. AJ Green, 12 shots, all from the three-point line. That's where I want him shooting.
Yeah.
Ryan Rollins, 12 shots. And then Bobby Portis led the bench with 15 shots. Pete Nance with 3 shots. The thing I liked about Pete Nance is he's not afraid to let that thing fly from three-point line either. That's something that I really, really like. So he could definitely be your backup power forward if you want him to be. And the Hawks started this game over 21 from 3. They finished 12 of 21. So they were absolutely cooking at the end of this game. They had 6 more shot attempts from the three-point line. And to your credit, you brought up Pete Nance, how he's tipping balls and, giving more shot attempts for the Bucks. The Hawks shot 17 more shots.
Damn.
They had 96 shot attempts. The Bucks had 79. So 17 more shot attempts, and they only shot 1 less free throw. So the Bucks holding them to 110. Phenomenal stuff.
That's crazy, dude. 110 points on 96 shots is crazy. Yes. Wow.
The Bucks offense was very efficient.
And the defense too, damn. Taylor asked, did you guys talk about possible forwards to trade for? Not yet. So as we transition here, the last couple of things with the Hawks game, you mentioned the 6 for 12 threes for AJ Green. Doc Rivers did talk post-game that was part of the game plan. It wasn't not necessarily like we need to get AJ Green 12 shots, but he said they got what they wanted offensively. Mm-hmm. And they got the shots that they wanted. So I think Doc Rivers is being intentional about balancing the lineup a little bit more. And as a transition point, as we look into what's next for the Bucks, they play tonight against OKC. They play Friday against the Nuggets. They play Sunday against the Mavericks. And then they play Tuesday in Philadelphia against the 76ers. So starting tonight, the Bucks play every other day this week. The couple things as we go from the Hawks game into some of these trade rumors, starting with the first one being Ja Morant. The Bucks are heavily rumored to be interested in Ja Morant, and the Grizzlies want Ryan Rollins. Mm-hmm. So what I said on the trade show, which if you're listening, check out Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trades. We'll be live with them or not live. We'll be on the radio with him tonight. What I said with the Bucks and Ja Morant and the lineup shuffle from Monday is that the Doc Rivers was looking at it, seeing what Kevin Porter Jr. would look like coming off the bench.
Yes, sir.
So if the Milwaukee Bucks trade for Ja Morant, he becomes your starting point guard. Kevin Porter Jr. is your backup point guard.
Mm-hmm.
So he put him in that role. And then the other thing with Pete and Nance getting first quarter minutes, any trade that I'm looking at, including Bobby Portis involves Pete Nance getting more NBA minutes.
Yes.
And if it's something where the other trade that we're going to talk about is going to be Bobby Portis and a, quote, unidentified minimum salary, this is per Michael Scotto, for Malik Monk and Keon Ellis from the Sacramento Kings, that would involve getting 2 wing players. And in my mind, when we go from that point, either we try to acquire a big from somebody, or Pete Nance gets converted to a full NBA contract, and Pete Nance becomes your backup power forward.
So, in my opinion, to jump in real quick, if they're making that Malik Monk, Keon Ellis trade, they're absolutely calling Portland right after, and they're calling for Grant. That's my opinion on that, because I like Monk and I like Keon Ellis. They both do things that will help the Bucks where they struggle in some areas.
Yep.
And that they could be 2 players to lean into something that you brought up about becoming a defensive minded, that's your identity type team. They definitely help with that. And Grant also leans into that, but he is also a scorer, a secondary scorer. So if you can get a Grant, you can get Monk and Keon Ellis, I think you're retooling this roster for a better second half, I guess we'll call it. It'll be less than second half at that point, but
the Hawks game was their 43rd game, I believe.
Yeah. So I think I would like, if they have to get a big, obviously. Yeah. You don't want Pete Nance playing big playoff minutes at this point, but he could definitely play in the regular season, I think.
I like the idea. I guess I think of Jeremy Grant basically as a poor man's Pascal Siakam. And obviously we saw what that did for the Pacers, getting him.
Yeah.
So looking at Ja Morant, the Bucks reported interest. The Grizzlies reportedly want Ryan Rollins and a first. The Bucks would either have to include Bobby Portis or Kyle Kuzma. And at that point, I wouldn't want to trade 3 rotational pieces and a pick for one guy. Now, if the Bucks do that and they say ask for a guy like G.G. Jackson in return with Ja, then you get 2 rotational guys coming back, but it still leaves you needing a big to replace Bobby. And that's maybe where Pete Nance comes in. And then you're looking at also G.G. Jackson being a part of that. If you end up having to do Bobby and Kuzma and Rollins, and you're getting Ja and G.G. Jackson, I mean, you're really looking for another forward. Now, I will say, Ja Morant would bring some athleticism to the lineup. He's averaging 19, 7.6 assists, and 3.2 rebounds. He's not a three-point shooter. He absolutely would be athleticism, facilitating, and downhill play.
He's a sometimes shooter.
Yeah. As far as his attitude goes, which I know is something that scares a lot of people away from him, Jake and I talked about this, and I said to Jake, I'm like, being in a smaller NBA city, not that Memphis is, known for being a big city, but being in a smaller NBA city like Milwaukee and being around Giannis, I think could kind of curb some of that attitude a little bit. More like, hey, we're here for basketball kind of thing. But personally, I would rather keep looking. I would rather stick with Rollins and Porter at point guard and look at some other options. So I don't know if you have any feelings on the Ja Morant trade.
I am in such a weird spot with this Ja news, man. Like, one day I'm just like, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's go get another superstar. He's 26 years old. If you can get this guy to reach his full potential, then obviously, the sky's the limit. You have 2 guys that can attack the rim. He would help in some areas that I'm going to bring up in a second here. But I just think that you almost put yourself in a position where you almost have to pull the trigger at this. You know what I mean? Like, you're in a very, I don't want to say a rock and a hard place, but you're in a very delicate spot right now with how Giannis has been talking to the media lately. I'm just going to say that. Been kind of upsetting me. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, dude, like this, like there was comments made probably 3 weeks ago now where somebody was like, "Oh man, he's turning into the new LeBron," and I'm like, "No, I don't see that." But then he says stuff that he said the last couple of days, and I'm like, "Dude, he does kind of sound like LeBron." I'm not gonna lie to you, I want to be the villain and all that. Like, I'm enjoying being the villain stuff. Like, okay, Giannis, I love you. This is not like this is not me like kicking you, but like, bro, you can't say I'm the leader. Maybe my voice is getting bad. I'm the leader. I'm the leader. I want to break through. I'm the leader. I'm the leader. And then say you enjoy being the villain. All I'm gonna say is poison, bro. That's how I feel about that. But Ja Morant going to a new city could be, new start, new mindset. I do think that you're in a place where you kind of have to go for it. Is Ryan Rollins really taking this team over the top? And he's only 3 years younger. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like a guy where it's so if the age gap was 8 years, I would totally understand the mind frame of being like, I don't know, man. That's a pretty big gap. But 3 years, I'm like, Ja could still play longer than Ryan Rollins, to be completely honest with you. I mean,
yeah.
No, they don't.
Brad said both Ja and Giannis need the ball. I mean, we've seen that. And that goes right to Taylor's point. Taylor just said going for that Ja trade reminds of the Dame trade, but Dame's on a different level, but still has a similar feeling of a big name, but the results won't be too well. I mean, we don't know what the results are before trying it. It's similar to the Dame trade. Like, I mean, I still remember exactly what I was doing when I found out that the Bucks were getting Damian Lillard. That was a big deal. I mean, you don't know how stuff's going to work until you try it. But right now, we know what we're doing is having us a little bit under 500.
I'm going to address Brad's comment. When did LeBron really take that leap to where everybody was like, okay, this is pretty clearly the best player in the league? When he went to Miami and he had to learn to play off ball, which is something that Giannis still has not learned to do, which is why people get frustrated when he brings the ball up, which is why he's exhausted on both ends of the floor. Maybe getting Ja will force Giannis to unlock that next level. Maybe
we saw it at times with Dame. We saw it at times.
The game is so good, bro. If you're able to run an action and get Giannis into the post with Ja bringing the ball up, the defense can't just all focus on Giannis. They got to worry about this guy who could jump over their center.
Yeah.
So that's the other end of it. And Giannis is a very good recipient of lobs, is all I'm going to say. And Ja Morant never shies away from a highlight. So that's my opinions on that.
That's fair. The other deal that the Milwaukee Bucks that I mentioned were rumored to be interested in, is they are in contact with the Kings, per Michael Scotto, who I would say is a pretty reliable source, of looking at Malik Monk and Keon Ellis for Bobby and an unidentified minimum salary. So that could mean Gary, it could mean Amir Coffey, it could mean Cole Anthony. It could mean Taurean Prince too, but I don't think they're going to trade him while he's injured.
I don't think so.
So looking at it, Malik Monk is 6'3". He's a high-energy guy, similarly to Ja Morant. He's a guy who plays above the rim. He's a career 35% three-point shooter, although he's shooting 40% on threes this season. He's 27. He's been top 5 in 6 Man of the Year twice. Not really known for his defense, but he's a guy that you and I have been a fan of for a good while. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I like Malik Monk. I think he would be an interesting piece to add to the Bucks. Mm-hmm. To your point, like you said with Keon Ellis, he is 26, and he is known for his defense. Mm-hmm. That is what he's known for. Mm-hmm. And actually, in his 3.5 seasons that he's played in the NBA so far, he is a career 41.5% three-point shooter. So he's a better three-point shooter than I would say that he looks like on the surface. But he is much younger than Bobby, who's going to be 31 on February 10th, and younger than Gary Trent Jr., who's 27, Amir Coffey, who's 28, and Cole Anthony, who's 25, would be the only guy who's younger if the Bucks were looking to include one of those minimum salaries in a trade. So the way I see it, this one is an opportunity to get a little bit younger, get a little bit more athletic, and make a play at some other deals, which I love your idea of then turning around and looking at Kuzma and some salary fillers for Jeremy Grant. I think looking at it, if you say we added Malik Monk, Keon Ellis, and Jeremy Grant to this team to then play with Ryan Rollins, Kevin Porter Jr., Giannis, AJ Green, Miles Turner, I think that makes you almost a defensive juggernaut in my mind. And looking at the way that the Bucks should be playing, like I said, coming out of that Spurs game and then the Hawks game. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts that you want to throw on that potential trade.
No, I really think that trade would make us a lot faster, which is something that needs to happen. They need to play a faster pace. Their pace, I believe they're like
21st, I think.
I thought they were lower. I thought they were like 25th. But either way,
that's where I thought they were the last time I looked, which was probably a few days ago.
Either way, they're bottom third of the league in pace. And when you have a guy that is Giannis, you have a guy that is Kevin Porter Jr., you have a guy that AJ Green likes to run the floor and fill those corners and shoot, break threes. Miles Turner could do that. You need to be playing a faster pace. That's one of the problems with the Bucks offense.
The Bucks are 24th in possessions per game.
Yeah. Not great.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that's that. We will, again, if nothing happens between now and Saturday-ish, Jake and I are probably looking at putting some trade ideas together for the Bucks. But other than that, if you don't have anything else Bucks related, we're going to switch to the Badgers.
Yeah, let's go to the Badgers.
Yeah, Brad said, I agree, Jake. It would feel easier to find players that fit Giannis' skills since we haven't seen enough of him off the ball.
Yes.
And Taylor said, icy hot on those feet. Yeah. All righty. Well, let's switch to the Badgers, and we'll bring in Mike. Alrighty, so got a Badgers W this week. Another one. We're up to 4 in a row. Mike, welcome back. So we are discussing the Badgers win over Rutgers on Saturday. What did you take away from the guards?
Yeah, great to be back. 4 wins in a row for the squad. Start off with that. Looking very, very good for the month of January. As far as this game goes, it was a fantastic first 20 minutes of the game. In the second half, not so much. I'll get into the big picture in a sec. But I got to start with the player of the game, in my view. It's got to be Nick Boyd in this game. 32 minutes, 32 points, 1 rebound, 9 assists. Again, like the Michigan game, 9 assists, only 1 turnover. I will take that turnover, like assisted turnover ratio any day of the week, as should anybody else who knows the game of basketball. So outstanding there. 9 assists, 1 turnover, only 1 steal, 14 of 15 from the free throw line. Chef's kiss on that one. He also drew 10 fouls himself personally, which kind of makes sense with the whole 14 for 15 from the free throw line. So I thought that was very, very impressive on his part. He actually started off kind of cold shooting. He started 1 of 5 shooting, and then all of a sudden he hit back-to-back 3 balls. So, you got to admire somebody who necessarily doesn't really give up or like shies away from shooting. Even at that point, like in the beginning of the game when he was going like that 1 for 5 and he was kind of like chucking a little bit, I'm like, okay, maybe hold up a little bit, but no, he just kept playing. And next thing you know, he's got 2 straight 3-pointers after that. So outstanding day for Nick Boyd in this game. The most important part of this game in the second half, probably when Rutgers was making a comeback for him, he scored 10 of the final 32 points in the final 6:31 of the game for 10 of his final 32 points in the final 6 minutes and 31 seconds of the game to close the door, capped by a huge and one, to put the game out of reach essentially. But it was Nick Boyd doing his thing, ultimately attacking downhill and got great looks for not just himself, but for others, explains the 9 assists as well. And, Nick Boyd's having an incredible month. I mean, again, going back to that Michigan game, it was similar. He's finding his guys in space. He spread it like he's the reason why we're able to play so spread out as well. He's a big part of why we shot once again 40% from 3 in this game. We went 12 of 30. We're hearing these 40%, games now, more consistently shooting from 3. And this is a big part of it because when you get a guy like Nick Boyd who can crash down and he can drive and kick, that's going to give us more better looks. So we're starting to turn the wheels, I think, regarding with what we want to run and how we can, consistently do it, especially from shooting from the 3-point line. So outstanding game from Nick Boyd. Definitely the MVP in my view in this game, and big reason why we won. And then going into Jack Janicki, slowly but surely, he did get a little bit better this game, even though I still think 17 minutes at this point in time might be a little too much for him. I do wish you guys already know who I'm going to say here shortly, who should get a few more minutes of playing time. But no, 17 minutes. He did get 6 points for us. He did shoot 2 of 4 from 3, did grab us 2 rebounds and 1 assist. When I'm looking for Janicki even going forward, if he is going to get these kinds of minutes, which it's definitely projecting that he will be, he's just got to be smart with the kind of shots that he does take, right? Because there are a couple that he does take, and it leads to, whether it's bad missed threes, and then it leads to easy transition buckets for the other team, which is a big problem that, with the style of offense that we have to make sure we can get back and play that transition defense more consistently as well. So just something to look out for going in the future. And I guess, just to end on this with Zach Kinzinger, 5 minutes, 1 rebound, not too much. Still hoping he gets a few more minutes going forward. But, overall, no, big picture. Just need to have more consistency to play a full game. We basically play with our food ultimately, I think, in the second half, and we kind of let off the gas. I think that's kind of an obvious statement, but I think it's the truth when you watch this game. We just got to make sure we, even when you're playing a team like Rutgers, who on paper doesn't seem the greatest, you got to. This is the Big Ten, man. Everybody's competitive. We got Penn State tomorrow, who, by the way, John Blackwell and Nolan Winter are 0-2 against. Yep. So they cannot take that game lightly. So that goes back to this point of, I don't care what the record is, we got to be able to step on a team's throat for a full 40 minutes. So call out the 3-point percentage once again. That was a great job, 40%. Love seeing that. Can we stay hot? I think so. January, great opportunity for these boys to close out with a nice few wins here down the stretch to put us in that top 5, I think, which could be as soon as next week, I think, if we can get a win tomorrow.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, so looking at just the second half alone, I think the ball movement wasn't as good in the second half. I think that kind of showed that the ball got a little bit sticky. With that, the Badgers did only win by 9, but if you look at it, Rutgers scored 5 points in the last 30 seconds versus all of the end of the bench guys who were not trying to score. So on paper, this game was won by 9 points, but in reality, it was more like a 14-point victory. I'm really not going to hold those 5 points against the team, as Rutgers was just trying to put a couple points on the board for a moral victory of some sort. Looking at the wings, John Blackwell, he turned a Nolan Winter missed free throw into a 5-point possession, so that was pretty sweet. Nolan Winter had an and one, and he missed the free throw, and John Blackwell ended up cashing a 3, so I made a 5-point possession. That would be awesome if we could just do that on purpose all the time. Blackwell did start 2 of 3 from the 3-point line. Did get into a point in the second half where he was scoring with a 3, and then just started going downhill bully ball. And that's awesome. I love seeing the duality of John Blackwell, of him being able to do both of those things. Nice. He finished with 19 points on 5 of 13 shooting, which isn't the best from the field. 3 of 8 from 3. I'll take 37.5%. And 6 for 6 from the free throw line. So he's back to shooting very strong at the free throw line, which is great. He had 5 rebounds, which is great. He had 3 assists and 2 steals. I'll take that every game. And 0 turnovers. So, yeah, he wasn't the most efficient from the floor, but this is still a hell yeah game from John Blackwell for me.
Mm-hmm.
He was a co-Big Ten Player of the Week, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was. So that was a fine game for me.
Yep.
Well, hell of a day for the backcourt.
Yeah. Andrew Rohde, he is in the half court a very, very good passer. And he's very good at making post entries. He grabbed a steal and got a transition layups when the lead got cut to 17 in the second half. Played great on-ball defense after a turnover with Wisconsin up 10. So he's doing good things, even though I've gotten a little bit critical of him at times of not contributing maybe enough to the bottom line of how many points the Badgers were scoring. He had 6 points in this game. He had 1 rebound. He had 1 steal. But the thing that does contribute to that 96 is Andrew Rohde having 5 assists. If he's going to have a 6.5 assists game, fine. Leave him in the starting lineup. That's great. The thing where it's like, okay, maybe we should consider starting my other guy, Braden Carrington, is when Rohde has the games where he's got like 4 points, 1 assist, 2 rebounds, and a turnover. Those are the kind of games where it's like, dude, like we need more out of you if you're in the starting lineup. We need more production. So if that production comes in the form of assists, I'm good. Looking at Braden Carrington, he played 20 minutes in this game. I'd still like him to be playing like closer to 25, but if he's between 20 and 25, I'm not going to complain. I think in this game he still showed that he's stronger on catch and shoot. His shooting, his jumper in general is just butter. His jumper is so smooth, it looks so good. I believe that every time the Braden Carrington's shooting the ball, it's going in. Mm-hmm. That's where I feel like I'm at with him. He was brought in late in the game for more defensive length. He does make the Badgers more switchable, so I do think that's something that's going to continue when we get into late game situations. I think it's going to be Boyd, Blackwell, Rhodey, Carrington, and Nolan Winter. I think that's the closing lineup that they're going to go with. That's the closing lineup they went with at Michigan. It's the closing lineup they went with in this game. I think that's going to continue. Bieliauskas has done some good things, and I'm going to let Jake talk about the bigs, but I think Braden Carrington is going to play your small ball 4 in closing lineups in some of these bigger games that we're going to get into. So, Jake, what'd you take away from the bigs?
Yeah, I'll talk about Bieliauskas right away since that seems to be the topic right now. Bieliauskas, they're doing a really nice job. Played 20 minutes in this game. I think the coaching staff is doing a tremendous job letting him start, letting him play against these better players that are in the starting lineups for these Big Ten teams. But then also, hey, when it's a bigger situation, I want you to come over here so I could coach you on it. So I think that's something that may go unnoticed to the average fan or the people.
I feel like that's something we should give Krabenhoff and Steamsma credit for.
Yeah, and 2 years when Bieliauskas is like, we're going into the season and he's on the watch for first team All Big Ten, I'm gonna be like, well, go back to his freshman year. This is the things that they did. They slowly got him into more and more actions, and he's had a moment. He had a moment against number 2 Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. So he's obviously capable, and just getting his feet wet and getting him in those situations, I think that's a beautiful job by the Wisconsin coaching staff. So wanted to give them a shout out on that. So we didn't even plan this, by the way. This just happens with Tyler and I, where he's just like, I'm going to let him talk about Bieliauskas. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I have a little section I wanted to say about him. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with the other guys before I go to Nolan Winter. And the other guys I'm going to start with Rapp. What do I need to – I don't want to be disrespectful, but dog, I don't know if he can handle Big Ten. I'm being nice saying that. I don't know if anybody disagrees with that, but I don't know if he can handle Big Ten basketball. He just might not be good enough, and that happens. It is what it is. He shot 2 shot attempts, missed both. He got 1 rebound in 10 minutes. They put Garlock in the game early, and Garlock was balling, dude.
Yeah.
Took advantage of the size.
Hell yeah.
He was being aggressive down there, which early in the season, he wasn't trying to shoot the ball, and it was like, dog, you're massive. Shoot the goddamn thing. I was just like, he showed his playmaking ability, he wants to be a team player. I love that too. But dude, if you're down there and you're massive, just shoot the damn thing.
He did it every time he got an offensive rebound. He was getting putbacks. That was awesome.
Yeah, 6 points, 4 rebounds, 2 for 3, 6 minutes. Super efficient 6 minutes.
Hell yeah.
But the best big man that we have on this team, Nolan Winter, played 32 minutes. The guy's just going to log a ton of minutes for us this year. He's going to grab all the rebounds. He only had to grab 5 in this game. He scored 18 points, 6 of 6 from the field, 2 of 2 from the three-point line. I mean, this guy is just getting so good and so comfortable from any spot on the floor. And the thing about the Badgers team that is really starting to take shape is as they're getting the rotations down, Guard is getting the rotations down. He's starting to figure some things out. I still think you take a couple more minutes away from Janicki. I think you give a couple more minutes to Andrew Rhodey, and they got to start running some sets for Rhodey. We got to get his offense going. He needs to be a 10-point per game guy, in my opinion. With the assist, I think if he's a 10-point per game guy with everybody else, this team could beat anybody in the country, I think. But the scoring is starting to show what it's supposed to be. Boyd is starting to become the guy that we all thought he was going to be. The playmaking, they actually have him playing like a fucking point guard, which is kind of nice to see. And he's scoring the ball. John Blackwell can go get his goddamn shot anytime he wants. And the way they're using Nolan Winter is a beautiful, beautiful. The top 3 guys need to be like that every game, and then the others can fill in. But one of the others, the guy that needs to be the best other, it has been Carrington, in my opinion, but it needs to be Andrew Rhodey. They need to get him going. If you get Carrington and Rhodey going, this team is the best team in the Big Ten, in my opinion. I know Michigan's good, but we handled Michigan at their house. Just saying.
Yeah.
I would love to get more shots up for Nolan Winter, to be quite honest. I mean, he's Mr. Efficient, only six shots. I know my guy Nick Boyd takes a shit ton of them, but I would love to get Nolan Winter some more shots, some more touches.
I want to see Nolan Winter get in more transition. Like I brought it up last week, his positioning, like if he sees a guard in transition, like he runs to their body and then bring them down to the block, and he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna, like the thing where you like hold a little kid's head so they can't run up to you, like that's Nolan Winter in the paint, and then he just holds his other hand up, waits for the ball, and gets a layup. I want to see more of that. Like if Nick Boyd's gonna keep pushing the pace, do it where you get Nolan Winter being guarded by a guard because they're not back on defense yet, so a guard has to stay on Nolan Winter, and then just exploit that mismatch as quickly as possible and get him some easy buckets that way.
I like getting Nolan Winter some more shots, but I think, honestly, he's vibing right now. I just think he's in such a good rhythm that
he is.
Like, if you got him 10 shot attempts, I don't know if I don't want him to only think offensively because he's been so balanced this year. So
he has asked to do a lot too on defense. Like a lot.
He is needed a lot on defense this year because we have nobody else down low, dude. So that's kind of where my mind goes. Like, if we get him more shot attempts, if he's shooting in the paint all day, he's gonna have to run all the way back because he's the only goddamn paint defender we have. So I don't know. That's just my mindset. I wouldn't hate it. I'm not gonna be mad if it happens. Yeah, I agree.
Alrighty, so the Badgers play at Penn State tomorrow night, and then they play Sunday at home against USC. So those are the two Badger games that we will have for basketball next Wednesday. Now, switching to Badgers football, looking at the transfer portal, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the departures, and then I'm going to run through the additions on offense. The three of us each have a guy that we're going to kind of highlight as a guy that that we're excited about with these additions, and then we're going to do the same thing for the defensive side of the ball. We're not going to linger on a ton of these for a long period of time. Jake and I are planning on doing some more individual type stuff with this, where we kind of highlight each of the guys as we start hearing about things about them in the spring and in the summer. So that's when we're going to kind of flesh these out a little bit more. But just off the rip, I'm just going to rip all the names, and then we're going to talk about a couple guys that stand out. So Connor, welcome back. I'm going to jump into the departures first. Offensively, Billy Edwards, Cade Giacomelli is a grad transfer. Dylan Jones transferred out. Kyan Barry Johnson, Joseph Griffin Jr., and Trechka Kahuna from the wide receiver room. Tucker Ashcraft from the tight end room. And then Jake Renfro, Joe Brunner, and Leighton Nelson from the offensive line. Deed Capper did transfer as a long snapper, and Atticus Burchams from the punter room. And then defensively, Jamel Howard transferred out. Sebastian Cheeks briefly entered and then exited the transfer portal, so he's sticking around, which is great. Eugene Hilton also entered the transfer portal, came back to Wisconsin, so retaining those two guys is huge. From the edge room, Cody Raymond, Angel Toombs, and Ernest Willer entered the portal. Linebackers, Tackett Curtis and Antaron Turner weren't super surprising ones, but losing Christian Allegro was a little bit of a bummer. The Badgers did have 3 freshman linebackers, and I think there's a potential that the Badgers are looking at the youth movement in that room. And then from the defensive backs room, Remington Moss, Jameer Latimer, not a surprise after we saw Amari Latimer go to West Virginia. We all knew that Jameer Latimer was going to follow. Yep. Preston Zachman, I hope he balls out. I hope he can turn himself into a NFL prospect similar to the way that Isaac Garendo did. And then the one that was a bummer was Emilio Agard. I was hoping the Badgers could keep him around. Unfortunately, he entered the transfer portal. That was really the one guy that I was really hoping the Badgers could hold on to. Okay. Offensive additions. Quarterbacks. We got Colton Joseph. Hell yeah, that was my number 1 target from Old Dominion. Super happy about that. We're kind of waiting to see if Deuce Vaughn from Louisville is going to be a transfer portal or not. He was originally announced that he was committed to Wisconsin, but hasn't been officially added to the list yet. Mm-hmm. Running backs, they added Abu Sama from Iowa State, Brian Jackson from USC, Nate Palmer from TCU. The wide receiver room, they added Zion Kearney from Oklahoma, Shamar Rigby from Oklahoma State, Jalen Domingo. It's Domingio. I looked at that and I'm like, oh, I bet it's Domingo, and it's Domingio.
I had to Google that one too. I was like, oh God, I'm not doing
that. Louisiana French last name, yeah.
I'm like, I saw the G and the EAUX, and I'm like, oh, that's Joe, so it's gonna be Domingo. Like that's super easy. But nope, Domingio. All right. And then Malachi Coleman from Minnesota. In the tight end room, they added Jacob Harris from Bowling Green and Ryan Schwendeman from Southern Illinois. I would have liked to see a little bit more in the tight end room, if I'm being honest. Losing Lance Mason and Tucker Ashcraft, I would have liked to see a little bit more production added from the tight end room. Maybe they still will, but it sounds like Luke Fickell's comments today that they're not going to be really adding anybody else unless they get into spring ball and see if they need something. Offensive line, they added Austin Kowecki from Oklahoma State, Blake Cherry from Arkansas. Shout out Mike for calling that one. Lucas Simmons from Florida State, PJ Wilkins from Ole Miss, and Styles Blackman from Augustana, South Dakota. There are a couple other that have kind of trickled in, and there probably will be a couple more trickling in here or there. But Mike, is there anybody on the offensive side of the ball that really jumped out to you that, like, I'm excited about that guy out of all these names?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously when you bring in guys from the transfer portal, at least for me, I'm looking for guys that, have been around and produced ultimately at the end of the day, right? So my guy, I went with Abu Sama, the running back from Iowa State. Very, very interesting upbringing in his recruiting. He was a very, very low recruit. He was a 2022 Iowa Gatorade Player of the Year. But no, didn't really get any big offers until last minute when Iowa State offered him as a cornerback, believe it or not. Which is very, very surprising because this guy ran a 10.91 in the 100-meter dash too. So that's freaking lightning. 5'11", 210 pounds. This is going to be a very, very explosive running back that Badger fans are going to enjoy seeing. When he was at Iowa State, it was by committee with a 2 running back system, but specifically last year, he came at 12 games. He did have 2 starts, but he did tally 732 yards and 5 touchdowns last year as, again, that running back 1A, 1B type scenario. But he did have a game highlighting. He had 24 carries for 177 yards for 2 touchdowns at Colorado, so at Deion's place. So this guy is definitely capable of being the bell cow, so to speak, in my view, if it does come to that. With his play style, I mean, he's going to be breaking through tackles, but he's also going to be making people miss at the end of the day. And I think with his type of play style, when you pair that with a guy like Colton Joseph, I think that's definitely going to open things up, I think, quite a bit and, keep defenses on their toes with this play style. But he also with, making people miss, breaking through tackles. He had 48 missed tackles last season, which I believe was good for 3rd in the Big 12, right around those lines. But I mean, this guy's played in 38 games. He's got, he made what did I have? Oh yeah. He has over 1,900 yards running as well in those 3 seasons. His first career start, fun fact, he had 276 yards rushing in the snow at Kansas State and had 2+ 70-yard touchdown runs. Nice. So yeah, this is gonna be a big play dude. One last stat line I'm going to throw out there. He has 13 touchdowns in his career. 6 of those have been for 50+ yards or more.
Damn.
So very interesting pickup. I think he's going to be, if I had to guess, maybe that 1A. It's going to be by committee, I think, in this running back room going into next year. But he's going to be one of those top 2-3 guys for sure.
I think he'll be the starter.
Yeah, I think he ultimately will be, I think. But I do think it's going to be a balanced running attack, kind of like what they wanted to do last year, I guess, until everyone got hurt. But between like the Dylan Jones, Darion Dupree type deal with a sprinkle of Katie Akamelli. But keep guys healthy. He's no doubt in my mind he's going to be a starter, I would think.
Yeah. I am excited about the aforementioned Jalen Domingio. He comes from southeastern Louisiana, so it was not easy to find tape of him. But he's coming from a small school, and I said this when we talked about the transfer portal a few weeks ago, that I think part of the spirit of the transfer portal is to give guys from lower schools a shot to get into the bigger schools by producing at the level that they're at and earning an opportunity to get promoted. Kind of like how Major League Baseball, you work through the lower levels into the majors. So I'm excited to see if he can replicate the 52 catches for 857 yards and 11 touchdowns that he put up last season. That's a very productive player. He is also a good run blocker. He's got super quick feet and a guy who averages 16.5 yards per reception. I'm just excited to see if it translates to the Big Ten level.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, is there anybody you're excited for on offense?
Yeah. So first of all, Sama has like such a great name. Dude, like I'm excited for him to break a big run here. Sama breaks free. Like, dude, perfect name for a running back at Wisconsin to break free, first of all. But I like Brian Jackson out of USC. He was a 4-star recruit in 2023. He was ranked as, what does it say here? He was a 4-star recruit, touted as a number 27 running back in the nation. He went to USC. So the last 2 years, he wasn't used very much. He had 36 carries in 2024 for 188 yards and a touchdown. In 2025, he had 36 carries again for 123 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, he doesn't have the wiggle that Sama has in the open field, but he's more of the, okay, I'm going to get the tough yards. So you get a Dylan Jones going out. This is your Dylan Jones replacement, in my opinion. He's a between the tackles type of guy, but he was quoted as saying, because his mom was kind of hesitant to let him go to Wisconsin. He was like, Mom, this is my play style. This is how I play. This is going to fit me a lot better. And I agree. I think that he just didn't fit that USC offense. And I think that the Wisconsin style that we're trying to get back to, that old school, that grind it out, that, Indiana kind of ran where they just won the national title going 16-0. I think that's Wisconsin is trying to aim for that as well. We have a dual threat quarterback now, a couple running backs, and some bigger wide receivers. I think that's the style that Wisconsin's going for as well. And I think Brian Jackson's going to be a really nice piece behind Abu Sama, in my opinion.
Yeah. All righty, jumping over to the defense, run through these quick. On the D-line, they added Junior Poyser from Buffalo, Hammond Russell from West Virginia, Jake Anderson from Illinois State, DeNigel Cooper from Appalachian State. On the edge, they added Justice Boone from Arkansas, Jaden Lofton from Tennessee, Liam Danitz from Hope College. They added a linebacker, John Kamara from Kansas. And then DBs, they added 4 corners, Eric Fletcher from Ohio State, Kai Bates from Florida State, Javon Robinson from Arizona State, and Bryce West from Ohio State. So all the states. And then safety, they added Iowa State, Carson Van Dinter, a Wisconsin native, so another one into the DB room. And then Marvin Burks from Missouri. So, Mike, anybody that stands out to you for the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, when you talk about our defense last year, a lot of hype's going to go to the linebackers, but D-line was a huge success last year, and led by Coach Whitlow. He was able to get, quality 4 or 5 guys that could go in there and play. And I think, going into obviously with the transfer portal with Tyler just naming those guys, they made it a priority to stack that room again, right? So I got Jake Anderson as my guy, D-line nose guard, 6'5", 295 pounds, coming from Illinois State. Recruitment was pretty kept under the radar once he entered the portal. He was coming off of an FCS championship game where they unfortunately did lose, take second to Montana State. But no, last year, 17 starts, he had 52 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks as a D lineman in the interior like that. I think that's a hell of a year. The plan is to, have him be a pure run stuffer, and the comparison immediately goes to Ben Barton. But once he gets down there, and the guys should be on campus now, he's for sure got to put on probably about 10 to 20 pounds, I would say, at least, to catch up to somewhat with what Ben Barton was. Ben, if you're just looking at like what it says on the roster, Barton was about 320 range, 323, and Jake Anderson's 295. So he's definitely, I think, if their plan is to be, replicate what Ben Barton did, he's definitely got to beef up a little bit. But no, this is another guy that comes in with 35 plus games with experience. And, what Tyler was saying with Domingo, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, it's going to suck. But this is an FCS guy, again, coming into the bigger stage, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how he translates. I love the fact that he's coming from a winning program. I think that's definitely going to be a big part of it too. A good example is literally Indiana with Sig bringing in all those guys from James Madison from that level over, and they're all winners. He came from a winning program. I'm hoping the fact that he's coming from a winning culture, he's going to have that mindset wanting to get better. Starts at the weight room, and hopefully once it continues as spring practices going into the fall, he's going to be in that 2 deep and maybe even a start.
Yeah, so the guy that I'm excited about is Liam Danitz, and you hear Hope College being a D3 school and being like, wow, why is Tyler excited about a D3 guy? He's 6'5", 227, has a great frame, and had 15 sacks this year. If he gets half of that, I'm going to be ecstatic for his addition. And Jake just did a little vroom vroom motorcycle thing. It's because he's fast as fuck, boy.
Dude, he played for the Flying Dutchman. You cannot be slow playing for the Flying Dutchman.
He was literally an All-American track athlete.
Yeah.
At 6'5", 227.
Yeah.
That's insane. And, you're like, oh, he's coming from D3. Who gives a shit? Ole Miss reached out to him. James Madison reached out to him. Louisiana Tech reached out to him. And he was followed on Instagram from coaches from Alabama, Michigan, and Oregon. So they were going to start poking around too.
Yep.
And then he did also have meetings with Western Kentucky and UCLA.
Yeah.
So Wisconsin is by far not the only D1 team to reach out to Liam Danitz. So the last thing that I was looking at was if he's 6'5", 227, you look at Mason Reiger, who came in last year at 6'5", 248. You put him in the weight room, boom, boom. He's fast, strong, big. Get him out there, see if he can get you a handful of sacks this season. I'm excited for Liam Danitz.
Yes.
Jake, who are you excited for on defense?
I got my man John Kamara, dude. Another all-time name. You were just talking about track athletes. John in high school, he competed in the long jump, the high jump, and the 100-meter dash. Oh, by the way, he's 6'4", 230 pounds competing in those events, which sounds really stupid. This guy originally is from Liberia, so he's one of those guys that didn't have all the tools and the coaching that the American athletes have. Coming from Liberia, he grew up in Arizona, Philadelphia, and Florida, so he's jumped around the United States as well. He was a 3-star recruit coming in. He still has, I believe he's a redshirt freshman, if I remember correctly, John Kamara. So he's a guy that has unlimited potential. We don't even know the ceiling for this guy yet. So getting him in that linebacker room, the Badgers are definitely making a point of emphasis to, like Mike said, to force the front seven to be a problem. They brought in a bunch of corners. They got a guy from Ohio State, so if that tells you anything. So I think this Badgers team with a lighter schedule is going to surprise some people. I think they might be a team that will be ranked at the end of the year around that low teens range, and they'll win a bowl game, and then people are going to start looking at the Badgers like, oh shit, did Fickle figure it out? Did they just give him a bunch of money? Did he figure that out? And I think John Kamara, the Liam Danitz of the world, those guys, the super athletes, I think those are the guys that are the secret sauce.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at people are wondering, oh, when's the money going to show up? And they brought, I think the final number was 32 transfer portal additions. So the money's definitely there. You can tell by the recruits that they were pulling.
Yes.
So like I said, we're planning. Jake and I are gonna do more individualized, looking at all these players as the spring and the summer takes its toll, and we start to hear about some of these guys and what they're doing in the spring practice and stuff like that, and getting a better idea of who's gonna fit where, what the coaches' impressions are of guys when they're actually getting on the field. So we're gonna flesh some of that stuff out on the socials as the spring and summer progress. But other than that, we will be back next week with a handful of more basketball games and maybe some Bucks trade targets. So other than that, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Later, guys. 10 rebounds tonight, Jake.
Oh,